Hey, good morning, everybody. So, thank you all for coming. This is the release of Project Momentum, which is a large study of 13 agencies that we did for waste inside government. I'm going to click through this deck and kind of give you a sense of some of the things that are in the report. This is not comprehensive. This will just highlight bits and pieces of what's in the report. You'll have the report at your disposal if you want to read the full thing later. I will say this, just to start off with. This report would not have been possible without the help of Governor Reeves and his team. So most of the agencies that we audited for waste are agencies that report directly to the governor. So the governor's agency heads were super accessible. They gave us access to every document that we need. We even held meetings in the governor's office to talk through all of this sort of stuff. So I don't think this would have been successful without Governor Tate Reeves and his team. So I'm going to click through this. If y'all have any questions, let me know, and happy to talk through all of those. So what was the methodology that we used for doing this? We pulled in a team of national experts who had helped other states reform state agencies, so states like Texas, North Carolina. Our goal was to audit financial documents, interview government employees, look at best practices from other states, and again, we wanted to make recommendations for 13 different state agencies. We focused, when we were doing that, on identifying FAT, waste in government. So for us, that meant recurring waste. That meant that if we identified something that was maybe a one-time expenditure that we thought was unnecessary, we did not talk about that. We tried to focus on recurring waste that happens year after year. We focused on identifying places where technology could be used to eliminate unnecessary functions, and we wanted the state in general to be smarter about procurement. That's the buying of stuff. So that's a big focus for this entire report. Here are the 13 agencies that we audited. You can see again, most of those report to the governor. The Department of Education, for example, does not report directly to the governor, but we included it because it was such a massive agency. It spends such a large amount of taxpayer funds. So I'm going to go walk through some of these individual examples of waste, and it'll give you a sense of what we did in the report. One thing that we found is that the state government has unnecessarily bloated IT contracts. Just to give you a quick example, look at the TV screen cost down there. It's the second row. Mississippi's negotiated unit price for TV screens was $5,800. Now, if we had just gone to the far right, if we had gone to a federal database that allows us to purchase the same technology at a price negotiated by the federal government, it would have been about $2,200. These are the kinds of things that we saw. Again, another example, software procurement. We purchased a piece of software to help handle tax and revenue administration. How did our cost for that software compare to other similar states like Arkansas and Utah, states with a similar number of people, states with similar sorts of challenges in state government? Well, we're paying more than these other competitive states. So those are the things that we see in IT when we're talking about wasteful IT contracts. What can state government do to fix all this? Well, again, this is just a flavor of some of the recommendations that we made. We sat down and talked extensively with each individual agency head to give them very specific recommendations for what they could do to fix all this stuff. But here's some of the stuff that we would propose when we had those meetings. We proposed that state agencies share contracts. So if I'm going to buy 25 TVs and DFA is going to buy 25 TVs, maybe we go in together, we buy 50 TVs and we save on the money. Add DFA review to improve state coordination. Again, if DFA had more oversight of what state agencies were buying, we would have more collaboration at the state agency level. This happens all the way down at the school level. So you'll have a principal who's buying toilet paper over here and another principal who's buying toilet paper over here. If they had just coupled together and they had decided to buy that together, they would have saved on the per unit price. And again, we need to use these federal cooperative agreements, the prices that the federal government has already negotiated, to get a better deal for state taxpayers. Let's talk about cars. People have long said that Mississippi state agencies have too many cars, spend too much on travel. And if you look at how we compare to other sister states, we do have this problem. So Mississippi spends about $25 million on travel vehicles and fuel every year. That's far more than Louisiana, Iowa, and Arkansas. Those are states with similar populations and similar rural areas, so their state agency employees are driving similar mileage to do their jobs. You can see that not only do we have too much money going to travel, vehicles, fuel, but our growth is also exceeding the rate of inflation, the growth in the amount of money that we're spending on transportation. Let's talk about state property insurance. So state government owns a bunch of different buildings. We have to pay for insurance to cover that. Our cost of property insurance on those buildings is very, very high. How high is it? Well, compare Mississippi to Florida. Florida has more property locations. Florida is prone to being hit by natural disasters, so you would expect their insurance costs to be higher. As it turns out, Mississippi is paying more to insure our buildings than Florida is. Not just more per unit, but more period on our state office buildings. So again, we wanted to dig into the details and let agencies know how they could fix this kind of stuff. Agencies need to be relying far more on RFIs and RFQs to get a sense of what vendors could be offering in terms of the best price. They need to improve staff training so that staff know, okay, well, I'm probably about to overpay for insurance. And again, DFA should partner with all these agencies so that state agencies can improve the use of existing resources. I will give you an example of this. We had a series of laptops in the auditor's office a few years ago that were really outdated for the audit functions that our staff needed. So instead of just getting rid of those laptops, throwing them away, and buying a bunch of new laptops, we called Veterans Affairs. They needed laptops. They don't need laptops with the kinds of horsepower and speed that we have. So we gave them our laptops, and then we went and bought new laptops. So we saved them some money in the process. This is the kind of stuff that state agencies could be doing together, but we just don't do a lot of in state government. Child protection services. We spend a smaller share of our dollars on preventative funds. That means funds to try to keep kids in stable homes rather than running immediately to child protection services. And again, we're spending a ton of dollars on administrative tasks just at the agency level instead of dumping that money into things that actually make a difference for the kids that are affected by child protection services. We talked a little bit about this, smarter choices on state buildings. Again, one of the biggest things here is reevaluating the insurance on state properties. We could be saving approximately $10 million if we were doing as well as some of the other states are doing. Same thing on Department of Human Services that we just talked about, consolidating offices and then also streamlining eligibility verification, making sure that we're using the latest technology to do that. All of these were specific instances where we identified savings. Here's just a snapshot look at state buildings. You've got some state agencies operating, and I'll point to this number right here, up here. You've got some state agencies operating with about 800 square feet of office space per employee, like a small apartment per employee. That's the kind of thing that we need to minimize. We need to get rid of office space that we're not using. A lot of times we're leasing office space that we don't need to be leasing. And so these are the kinds of things that state agencies can look at when they're looking at their real estate blueprint. Medicaid. We'll talk a little bit about long-term care at home, but we found multiple opportunities for Medicaid to save money. And in addition to this, I'd say that we've done audits on Medicaid every single year since I've been state auditor, and we've also identified folks who look like they're making too much money to be eligible to be on Medicaid. So add that to this list. The potential opportunity for savings at Medicaid is in the tens of millions of dollars. One of those opportunities is moving more people who are getting long-term care into the home-based setting as opposed to an institutionalized setting. You can see that when we look at ourselves compared to other similar states, we're not doing a particularly good job of that. So if we moved patients into those kinds of settings, the state would save money. And it's actually better generally for the patients themselves to be in a home-based setting. Department of Public Safety, one of the things I'll talk about here is eliminating inspection teams, duplicative inspection teams. You can see here that if you look at how we run our commercial vehicle inspection division, those are the folks who are out on the road inspecting commercial vehicles. They're responsible for far fewer highway miles, for example, if you look at the far right, than some of our other similar states like Iowa, Louisiana, Missouri. So in other words, we have too many of those employees patrolling too few miles. Mississippi Development Authority, close underutilized welcome centers, that's another basic one. Some of this stuff is controversial, so you may have a welcome center out there that people love going by, but the truth of the matter is the ROI for operating some of those welcome centers is not particularly high. Education. As you can see here, I've talked a lot about this. Mississippi spends a lower percentage of its K-12 education dollars on instruction than the national average. And we actually also spend a higher percentage of our administrative spending, or higher percentage of our K-12 spending on administration than every other state in the South, with the exception of Washington, D.C. Those kinds of things have to change. We have to get more money into the classroom, and so by having smarter procurement, by putting into place other measures that require those dollars to go into the classroom, Mississippi can get a better handle on this. MDE has a role to play. You can see some of the cost-saving mechanisms that other states use that we don't currently use straight out of MDE. And again, you could have the legislature also mandate that certain dollars go to certain things. So to take a look at the second bullet point up there, Texas has talked about requiring 50% of all K-12 spending to go directly to teacher salaries. That's something that we could do in Mississippi if we wanted more dollars to go into the classroom as opposed to on administrative spending. That's sort of a summary of that same set of points. Wildlife, fisheries, and parks. Again, savings to be found there. Example, close the state golf courses. There may be people out there who love the state golf courses, but the truth is that the ROI on those golf courses is very, very small, and so we have to be smart about what the core functions of state government are, and we have to be honest about what's providing a good return on investment and what's not. And then the state plane, this is the final point here. That's actually not our state plane, but that's a Beechcraft King Air that's very similar to the state plane that Mississippi owns. About 18 states do not operate their own aircraft for official travel, and that includes some big states like Florida, California. So we estimate that you could save over $1 million a year by selling the state plane and saving on the maintenance costs that you would have, the other upkeep costs that you would have, and instead using commercial travel or chartered flights if chartered flights are necessary. So those are the big highlights that are in the report. It's much more detailed than what I've just walked through, but really the top line number at the end of the day is we identified more than $335 million in recurring savings. We did a detailed analysis of the inefficiencies so we can point to specific contracts that state government has entered into that are inefficient. We propose clear action steps for the agency heads with detailed conversations with them, one-on-one, telling them what they could do to help achieve these savings. And most importantly for me, I think this is a roadmap for a leaner, more modern state government that saves money. And we were long overdue to do a look like this at state agencies to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, to make sure that dollars are not going toward things that are simply wasteful, but are instead going to roads and bridges, teacher salaries, tax cuts, cops, whatever it may be, the stuff that actually matters to Mississippians.